today. An emotionally charged murder trial sharply dividing a community just outside Dallas. A teenager convicted fatally stabbing a rival high school athlete during a track meet. How the community is responding tonight. ABC's John Quinones is in Texas.
Free Karmelo!
Tonight, raw emotion and tensions running high outside this Texas courthouse as word of the verdict reached the crowd.
What happened?
There was this kid, before I knew his name now, this kid was sitting under our tent at track. We asked him to move. He started getting aggressive and talking reckless. And my brother stepped in and said, "You need to move." He's like, "Make me move." Austin grabbed his backpack. The kid, I tried to whip around as fast as I could, but I didn't see the stab. But then I look at my brother, and then I'm not going to talk about the rest.
He was stabbed through the heart, not in the back alley, not in a drug deal gone wrong, at a high school track meet, in the middle of the morning, in front of his coaches, his teammates, and his friends. 17 years old, gone. And it all started because someone sat under the wrong tent when it started to rain. I need you to understand how fast this all happened. Let's talk about it. If this is your first time here, welcome to Crime Files. We break down real cases, real people, and the moments that change everything. If this story hits you the way it hit me, go ahead and hit that like button right now, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you never miss when we drop a new case. You are now part of the Crime Files family. Let's get into it. April 2nd, 2025, Frisco, Texas. It is a Wednesday morning, and the Frisco Independent School District is holding a district-wide track meet at David Kuykendall Stadium on the campus of Memorial High School. Multiple schools are competing. Athletes, coaches, and students are everywhere. And then the rain starts. Now, when it rains at an outdoor track meet, everybody scrambles. You look for cover wherever you can find it. And that is exactly what Karmelo Anthony did. He walked over to the tent belonging to Memorial High School and sat down. The problem? Karmelo didn't go to Memorial. He went to Centennial. And his own school didn't even bring a tent to the meet that day. Karmelo Anthony was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. His family moved to North Texas in 2021 looking for a better life. He was the oldest of 4 kids. By the time this day came around, he was 17 years old, holding a 3.7 GPA, serving as a captain on both his football and track teams, and working 2 jobs outside of school, one at Foot Locker and one at H-E-B. He had never been arrested, never been in serious trouble. By every account, he was a kid who had his head on straight. Austin Metcalf was also 17. He went to Memorial High School. He had a 3.97 GPA and was the MVP of his football team. His dad described him as a leader and said he was loved by many. He had a twin brother named Hunter. He was the kind of kid who made people feel like everything was going to be okay. A morning person, a hugger, a peacemaker, his mother said. These 2 boys did not know each other. They had never met before this morning. And yet everything was about to change under that tent. So here's where things started to get tense. Students under that memorial tent started noticing Karmelo sitting there, and they were not happy about it. Multiple witnesses said that students began telling him this was their tent, and that he needed to leave. And according to those same witnesses, Karmelo didn't leave. He stayed put, and the energy in that tent started to shift. Now here's where the accounts start to split, depending on who you believe. Prosecution witnesses said that Karmelo wasn't just sitting there quietly. They said he was getting loud, getting aggressive. A 16-year-old student testified that he heard Karmelo tell the students in that tent that they were a bunch of pussies and that they were not going to do anything about it. Other students said they kept asking him to leave, and he kept refusing. The picture they painted was of a young man who walked into a space he didn't belong in and then dared everyone around him to do something about it. The defense told a completely different story. Karmelo's attorney said his client went to that tent because he was trying to get out of rain and speak to a friend. He wasn't there to start trouble. He wasn't there looking for a fight. And when things escalated, he was the one who got cornered. One student testified that Austin Metcalf wasn't even initially part of the group trying to get Karmelo to leave. But at some point, Austin stepped up and took the lead. He walked up to Karmelo and said simply, "Bro, just leave." That was how it started. Just a few words. Leave our tent. But Karmelo didn't leave, and the tension kept building. One witness said Karmelo looked at the group and said, "Touch me and find out." That sentence right there tells you everything about where this was heading. And then it happened. Witnesses said Austin Metcalf pushed Karmelo. Some said it was a hard two-handed shove. Others said it was one-handed. Some called it a jab. Some called it barely a tap. But almost everyone agreed that Austin put his hands on Karmelo first. And the moment that happened, Karmelo reached into his backpack and pulled out a knife, a 5-inch folding blade, and he stabbed Austin Metcalf in the chest. One witness said they thought the knife was a bluff. They never expected him to actually use it, but he did. The blade went straight through Austin's chest, through his sternum, through the pericardium, straight into his right ventricle. The medical examiner described the wound as gaping, 2 inches wide. Austin Metcalf looked down and said, "Oh my God," and then he collapsed. The coaches and trainers ran to him immediately. One football coach pressed his hands onto the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. The athletic trainer started CPR. Everybody around them was praying. The Memorial head track coach later testified through tears that he knew right then and there that Austin was gone. Paramedics arrived and rushed him to the hospital. But it was too late. Austin Metcalf was pronounced dead. Karmelo Anthony did not run. He stayed at the scene. He surrendered to the Frisco police right there at the stadium. And when officers got to him, witnesses said he was crying hysterically. He kept asking if Austin was going to be okay. He kept asking whether what he did could be considered self-defense. Those two questions tell you a lot about what was going on inside his head in that moment. He was 17 years old. He had just stabbed someone. And he already knew that the question of whether he had the right to do what he did was going to find the rest of his life. Now, this is where the case stops being just about a tent and a knife and starts becoming something much bigger. Because what happened next had nothing to do with a courtroom. It had to do with race. Karmelo Anthony is black. Austin Metcalf was white. And the moment that detail hit social media, this case exploded. People who had never heard of Frisco, Texas were suddenly weighing in. People who had never watched a track meet in their lives were suddenly legal experts. The online reaction was immediate, and it was vicious on both sides. A fundraiser was set up for Karmelo's family on GiveSendGo, a Christian crowdfunding platform. By the time the trial started more than a year later, that fundraiser had raised over $600,000. People were donating to a boy charged with murder, and people were furious about that. A few weeks after Austin's death, a man connected to the January 6th Capitol attack organized a protest outside the stadium where the stabbing happened. He showed up under a banner for a group called Protect White America. The Metcalf family condemned it. Austin's father, Jeff Metcalf, went on national television and said this was never about race. It is about right and wrong. He said his son was not a racist. He said, "Please do not make this a race thing." But the internet had already decided what kind of story this was. And no father's plea was going to stop that. Karmelo's family was being harassed and threatened. His mother, Kayla Hayes, held a press conference and said their family had been under attack. She said her husband had to take a leave of absence from work because he was afraid of what might happen to them. She said our son deserves the same rights under the law that everyone is afforded. Jeff Metcalf said he had been swatted 6 times. 6 times someone called in a fake emergency to send armed police to his home. Both families were living in fear. Both families were grieving in different ways. And neither of them had asked for any of this. The trial finally began on June 1st, 2026, more than a year after Austin died. Jury selection alone became a flashpoint. There was not a single black juror on the panel. Civil rights advocates outside the courthouse said the jury composition was proof the system was rigged. The judge imposed a strict gag order. No live streaming. A maximum of 9 media members inside at any given time. No food. The judge knew what he was dealing with. Over 4 days, prosecutors called more than 20 witnesses, mostly teenagers who had been standing right there under that tent. Their testimony was emotional. Some of them broke down on the stand. Some jurors were visibly shaken during the medical examiner's testimony about how Austin died. At one point, the Metcalf family was asked to step out of the courtroom because what was being shown was too graphic even for them to sit through. The prosecution's argument was simple and direct. Karmelo Anthony walked into a space he had no business being in. He refused to leave. He provoked the people around him. He dared Austin Metcalf to touch him. And when Austin pushed him, he responded with a knife. You do not get to meet a shove with a stab, the prosecutor told the jury, especially when you provoke the shove. That is not self-defense. That is murder. The defense pushed back. Karmelo was outnumbered. He felt threatened. He was being physically confronted. Under Texas law, a person has a right to defend themselves when they believe they are in danger, and Austin Metcalf did put his hands on Karmelo first. The defense attorney told jurors his client acted in fear and chaos. After it happened, Karmelo dropped the knife. He didn't stab anyone else. He didn't run. He stayed and he faced it. Karmelo did not testify. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. They came back with a guilty verdict, murder, first degree, and just hours later, during the sentencing phase, they handed down 35 years in prison. The jury rejected the defense's argument that Karmelo acted under sudden passion, which could have significantly reduced the sentence. 35 years. He will be eligible for parole after serving half of that. When the sentence was read, the courtroom erupted in emotion. Some people cried. Some people stood up. And then the Metcalf family was given time to speak directly to the boy who had killed their son. Austin's mother, Megan, went first. She talked about how her son was a morning person, how he would walk into a room and make everyone feel better just by showing up. She said going home now means walking into an empty room and an empty bed and remembering every single day that Austin is dead. She looked at Karmelo and said, for journalists and activists, this is a story. For our family, this is our reality. She said, you should feel lucky you got 35 years because I've been given a life sentence without my son. Austin's twin brother, Hunter, stood up and asked Karmelo to look him in the eye. He said he has been trying to learn how to forgive. He chose God. But then his voice broke, and he said, now I want everything taken from you. You took everything from me. I wake up every morning, and his door is still shut. And then Jeff Metcalf stepped up to that podium. The father. He slammed his fist down and looked directly at Karmelo and said, we were robbed. Don't look down. He said people think grief is sadness, but it is not. It is rage. He told Anthony, you cannot even look me in the eye right now, but you could stab my son in the heart. He said his son's death did not just break his heart. It broke his nervous system. It broke the person he used to be. That person, he said, does not exist anymore. Outside the courthouse, Karmelo's supporters held protests and said justice had not been served. Cardi B called the verdict disgusting. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett called it evidence of a broken system. Karmelo's parents went on the Breakfast Club the next morning and said, we are in a nightmare. It does not feel real. We have been up all night crying and praying. His father, Andrew, said his son was already convicted in the court of public opinion before the trial even started. His mother, Kayla, said her son did not mean to hurt anyone, that he was defending himself. Within 24 hours of the verdict, Karmelo's legal team filed a notice of appeal. He also filed for indigency, meaning he is claiming he can no longer afford an attorney and needs one appointed by the court. The same family that raised over $600,000 in donations is now saying they cannot pay for a lawyer. The Give Send Go fundraiser was shut down the day after conviction, with the platform saying funds had already been disbursed for legal defense and family relocation during the year before trial. Karmelo Anthony is now 19 years old. He is currently being held at a Texas Department of Criminal Justice facility northwest of Houston. He went from being a team captain with a 3.7 GPA and 2 jobs to serving a murder sentence before he was old enough to legally buy a drink. And Austin Metcalf is gone. His twin brother wakes up every morning, and that door is still shut. His mother sits at his grave and has one-sided conversations. His father is a different man than he was before April 2nd, 2025. A broken man, a man filled with rage, a man who says he forgave Karmelo the day it happened, not for Karmelo's sake, but for his own, because he refused to let hate consume what was left of him. So here is what I want to leave you with. because this case raises questions that I don't think any verdict can answer. If you are 17 years old and someone puts their hands on you, at what point does your response become a crime? Where's the line between defending yourself and going too far? And why did Karmelo Anthony have a knife at a high school track meet in the first place? Was carrying a habit, or was it something more deliberate? What does it say about us as a society that two families who both said this was never about race had their tragedy turned into a racial battlefield by people who were not even there? What does it tell you that Austin's father said he forgave Karmelo the day it happened while strangers on the internet were calling for blood? And what does it do to a twin brother to wake up every single morning knowing the other half of him is never coming back? I want to know what you think. Drop it in the comments. Was this self-defense or was it murder? And do you think 35 years was the right sentence? Let's have that conversation because this one deserves it. And if this case got under your skin the way it got under mine, make sure you are subscribed to Crime Files. Hit that like button, click the bell icon, and come back because we have more cases coming that you are not going to want to miss. We will see you on the next one.